So, welcome to the channel, That Retired Guy. In case you forgot, my name's Darrell, and I'll be your tour guide as we take a look at life in retirement. Yeah, I know it's been a while since I made a video. Thanks for noticing and asking for more. I don't know, I think maybe these lockdowns were starting to get to me. Just trying to do the simplest things feels like you're kind of walking in quicksand. So many restrictions, all you can do is sort of sit around and wait for the vaccine that never seems to come. Yeah, the government tells me not to worry. The vaccines are on the way. Well, I'm reminded of the old expression, the check's in the mail. But enough of this whining. The purpose of this channel is to explore how to live your best life, even in the midst of a global pandemic. For me, it's all about keeping busy. I mean, don't get stuck in the pandemic quicksand. Just keep on trucking. So in this episode, I'm going to be talking about what's keeping me busy in these trying times. Now, let's start from the beginning. Now, if you've been following That Retired Guy, you'll know that my video blogging, or as they call it, vlogging, all started in the early days of the pandemic. It was kind of a fun project at the time, forced me to learn a whole new set of skills, gave me a chance to bring a little bit of light into what was getting to be a kind of a dark time during the pandemic. Now, as Les Nesbitt and Johnny Fever used to say, it all started back at a 5,000-watt radio station in Cincinnati, Ohio. Remember WKRP in Cincinnati? That was a fun show. Now, in my case, it all started with a cell phone camera in my condo apartment in BC. And hey, what a journey it's been. I mean, heck, I got 37 subscribers now. I know, it's kind of pitiful. But strangely enough, the videos have been watched over 570 times. I mean, don't be scared, people. Hit that subscribe button. Now, another interesting observation is that of the 9 videos I made so far, the most watched video is snowbirds. And it's like 2 times any other video for viewers. So it looks to me like there's a lot of interest in vacation properties and real estate in general. I mean, no wonder since we're all locked down in our homes. So let me share That Retired Guy's latest adventures in vacation properties. And yes, even in the middle of a pandemic. So if you had a chance to watch the Snowbirds video, you'll remember that we had sold our vacation property in Florida just as the pandemic was coming on us in 2019. We'd recently bought a condo in the west coast of Canada, White Rock, BC, and our plan was to escape the cold Ontario winters and still be able to spend our time in Canada. Now, springtime in White Rock is amazing. I'd go for long walks down the streets of flowering trees and shrubs and down by the ocean and walk by the pier. I mean, it's just amazing out there. I'd also listen to audiobooks while I was going, nonfiction, of course. And I have a passion for learning things, always have. Well, as much as we loved the weather, the flowers, even our neighbors, I mean, they were great. White Rock was never meant to be our long-term vacation getaway. Now, it was especially hard because our son and daughter-in-law lived not too far away. The problem was we were never really able to get together with them because of the crazy condo rules at our place. You see, we're not allowed to have any pets there. We weren't even allowed to have pets visit. Now, my son and his dog Moses are inseparable, and this was also a big factor in us wanting to sell. By the way, Moses has his own Instagram page. You can follow him at Moses of the Lower Mainland. It's kind of cool. Check it out. Anyway, moving out of White Rock was looking like our best option. We're planning now to go out there every year and visit. We're going to rent a cabin. We can all get together there. It'll be great. My son's been teaching me how to fish, something my brother-in-law has never been able to do. And my daughter-in-law, she's the one that got me started on these videos. Did I mention that she has her own podcast? It's really fun. You should check it out. It's called Overzealous. She's a hoot. But I digress. So it was looking more and more like a BC vacation property was not going to be a good long-term investment. We learned very quickly that BC was not all that friendly to vacationers, even fellow Canadians. I mean, on top of that, the cost of living is really high out there. And in 2018, the province came in with these really punishing taxes, a foreign investment tax, a speculation tax. I mean, they're all charged a percent of the assessed value of your property on an annual basis. I mean, it adds up to, thousands of dollars every year. And they treat Ontario, they treat people from out of province just as foreigners. And then, of course, with the arrival of COVID, BC became very hostile towards vacationers. I mean, people without a province license plates, especially from Alberta, they're having their cars vandalized. I mean, welcome to BC. I mean, we're watching all the travel advisories and restrictions, and we're starting to wonder if we're even going to be able to travel back and forth between Ontario and BC. Things are really getting complicated. So once again, we decided it's time to move on. Now, by this point, it's October 2020. We're in the middle of a pandemic. We're thinking, wow, this should be an experience. Huh? What the heck? Let's do it. Okay, so now as many of you know, buying and selling real estate is nothing new to that retired guy. As they say, this isn't my first rodeo. Now, over the years, my wife and I have bought and sold over 20 properties, and touch wood, we've always come out ahead. Now, part of the secret is my wife was a real estate agent. Actually, many years ago when we were living in BC. It helps when you know the ins and the outs of the real estate business. And most of the time, we've listed the properties ourselves. I mean, you save a huge chunk of change doing that. Now, in recent years, it's become a lot easier to do that with services like ComFree and Property Guys. And for $500, they'll put your property on the MLS. That's the multiple listing service where all the real estate agents go and search out properties. So really, as long as you do a good job staging your house, keeping it clean, and being ready at a moment's notice to do a showing, you'll do okay. Now, since we were trying to sell this property in the middle of a pandemic, we decided to list with an old friend who was a real estate agent in BC. She would know all the ropes on how to navigate during these lockdowns. And like many condos, there's special rules against things like signs that you put up or running open houses, that kind of thing. Now, our real estate agent friend knew exactly what to do to get the property sold, and it was worth the investment. As it turns out, the most important thing to do when you're trying to sell during a pandemic is have a good online presence. Now, she brought in a professional photographer and produced this amazing marketing package. The property was sold in about 10 days, and of course it didn't hurt that for whatever strange reason the real estate market was booming during this pandemic. I mean, go figure. Year-over-year sales in Vancouver were up 22% for December, and BC finished out the year with 8% average price increase. All this in spite of the huge tax grab by the BC government. Remember those anti-Canadian taxes I was talking about? Now, one of the nice things about working with a real estate agent, especially in the times of a lockdown, is that she can pre-screen buyers before they come to your place. You don't want a bunch of looky-loos wandering through your house, taking up time. I mean, between the two real estate agents, they can qualify buyers to make sure only those people that are really serious are coming through and looking at your property. Now, your real estate agent can screen buyers for whether or not they're serious, but what they can't do is screen for common sense. Now, our buyers had a few deficiencies in this area. Let me explain. You see, one of the special features of our condo was that we were selling it with a brand new top-of-the-line induction range. Deborah and I think it's one of the greatest kitchen inventions in a long time. I mean, it has instant on, fine temperature controls, and like a gas range, it can boil a pot of water in seconds. Now, unlike conventional gas ranges or electric ranges, the burners don't get hot. I mean, there's no risk of catching fire. Anyway, our real estate agent went to a lot of trouble to explain how great a deal this was to get an induction range with the condo. I even offered to sell the couple a full set of those induction-ready pots and pans that you need to work with an induction range, at a good price, I might add. I explained how you need to have those kind of pots and pans to work with an induction range. Now, just before we're about to close on the sale of the condo, I get a phone call from the buyer. And he's asking me whether or not there's a gas line behind the stove in the kitchen. And I'm asking him, well, so why do you want to know? And he tells me, well, I'm going to go out and buy a gas range for the kitchen. So I said, well, why do you want to do that? It's got this induction range in there. He said, well, I was there with the home inspector, and we tried it out, and it doesn't work. And I thought, no. Well, after getting over my surprise that the home inspector didn't know how to operate the induction range, I assure him that it worked just fine. It's brand new, after all. Now, Deborah overhears the discussion and suggests that maybe they should come over and she will give them a training course on how to operate the induction range. Well, they all agree, and later that week, they stop in and Deborah gives them the full training course. Problem solved. Well, actually, no. After getting back to Ontario, we get this phone call from the buyers, and they're telling us that the range doesn't work. So we ask them, well, did you put a pot on the stove? And they say, no, why would we do that? Apparently, they just touched the elements and found out there was no heat. Well, I guess there are just some things you can't fix. Now, as I mentioned, by this point, we're back in Ontario. But let me back up a bit and tell you about the long-distance move, because there's probably a few tips here that I can share with you. Now, before you pack up and ship all your belongings, the first thing you should do is downsize. You want to ship only those things that are hard to replace or that are worth more than the cost of shipping them. This means you can put in practice some of those tips that I discussed in the episode Buy and Sell Online. Now in BC, we're talking about Craigslist, and in Ontario, we're talking about Kijiji. Now in my case, I ended up selling all my tools. I mean, there's no sense in shipping back a duplicate set of tools. And if you're selling online, tools are the fastest thing to sell, as long as you price them at about half the new price. Now, when it comes to selecting a moving company, you got a few options, and we've used them all over the years. Long-distance moves can be done with a full-service moving company, or you can rent your own U-Haul truck and do it yourself. There's also the option to load a shipping container, those ones they'll drop in your driveway, and you load it yourself, and they come and pick it up and deliver it to your new address. But remember, though, when you're doing a U-Haul truck or one of those shipping containers, you're doing all the heavy lifting. Now, there's a wide range of prices, and you should probably get multiple quotes. A 2-bedroom house is going to cost you about $5,000 or $6,000 with a full-service company, depending on how far you go. A shipping container might cost you about $2,500, and you can rent a truck for about $1,800. Again, depending on how far you go and how much gas you're going to use. And, don't forget you're going to pay for meals and hotels and all that along the way. Now, the U-Haul truck is the option we chose many years ago. Our first move as a couple was from Ontario to northern Alberta. We rented that U-Haul truck and we drove all the way across the country. Loaded, unloaded the thing ourselves. I mean, not going to be doing that anymore. That's a game for young people. So this time we hired a moving company to get our stuff from BC back to Ontario. Now, you can still save money with this option, though, if you hire what they call a consolidated mover. And that just means that your stuff will sit in the warehouse for a while until they can load up a full truckload to be able to ship it across the country. Now, they charge by weight, and they will carry your furniture in and out of the house, but the rest is up to you, all the packing and unpacking and that kind of thing. Now, keep an eye on the weight estimate that you get. Recognize that's the minimum amount that you're going to pay. They're going to weigh that truck at some point, and if you're over, they're going to be charging you for the extra weight. Now, unfortunately, you're not going to get any break on the price if your weight is less than the estimate. That's the minimum. Now, in the end, we didn't have a lot to move, so it only cost us about $1,500 or 53 cents a pound. It's the way they do it. So now there was one more thing that needed to be moved. That little Corolla that we had leased to use out in BC. I wasn't ready to make the 4,400 kilometer drive, and getting out of the 5-year lease after a couple of years, that was going to cost me like $7,000 or $8,000. I mean, lesson learned there. No more leasing for me. Now, we contacted a forwarding company and put it on a train to ship it back to Ontario. Now, it turns out they used the same railroad that I used to work for many years ago, CP Rail. That was kind of cool. Anyway, forwarding company provides door-to-door service, and for $1,600, the car travels in one of those covered train cars, which is, a lot safer than putting it on a truck and taking it down the highway. So it arrived on time and without a scratch. Now, the only problem is we don't need 2 cars, and the Corolla just sits there in the garage, and we keep shelling out those monthly lease payments. Oh, well, like they say, first world problems. Now, we got back to Ontario just in time for Christmas, and we've been enjoying our time with the grandkids ever since. Now, it's actually the first winter I've spent in Canada since I retired over 15 years ago. What a choice, winter of the great pandemic. I do miss the southern sun and the west coast flowers, but then there's nothing better than having family around to keep you sane in these difficult times. And again, there's going to be vacations again sometime soon. This too will pass. Now, I hope you find my stories helpful, maybe a distraction from lockdown life. For me, the trick is to keep busy. Now, be sure to hit that like button and comment below. Be sure to let me know how you're doing. And until next time, live your best life.